Hello friends, welcome to One Stop All Poetry Solution. In this poem, we are going to talk about Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening interestingly consists of 4 stanzas, and each stanza consists of 4 lines. And though the poem apparently looks very simple in its language and also in the subject matter, but what is most striking to us is the use of the special form of language, the way of writing, and also the rhyme scheme. So without much ado, let's start with the poem. The narrator, who you may also refer to as the poet, is of the poet of the poem, The Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, that is Robert Frost himself. He stops by some woods on one evening, and the narrator or the poet knows that the owner, where does the owner reside, where does he live? And he is quite composed, he is a bit relaxed, thinking that the owner of the woods lives in the village, and he knows that he is comfortable with the fact that probably he will not come to see him trespassing in his territory. And therefore he can continue watching the natural beauty of the woods, the snow covered woods. That is very interesting here. Another thing that you will notice is the unusual beginning with the possessive pronoun. Here Robert Frost begins unusually, and the initial thought that he presents to us in this poem isn't quite clear. It is vague, and there is a subtle tension, a gentle mysterious atmosphere that is created as the narrator only thinks that he knows the woods, as if he is the only one who is familiar with the woods, and he does not lose any time to stop, and he does not care also about the fact that he is stopping by the woods and which belongs to someone else. It is the property of someone else. He is stopping there without someone else's property in order to enjoy the beauty of the poem, in order to enjoy the beauty of the wood. That is what makes this poem so much interesting. And it is the first stanza which at the outset which draws the attention of the readers, because the impact is quite strong. Its ability to make us ponder, its ability to intrigue us, its ability to keep us guessing that whether the poem had anything to do with Robert Frost, and whether it had anything to do with death or suicide. That is something that keeps us guessing, though Frost denied it. Everyone simply tells no. But yes, that is something that gets us back to reading the poem over and over again. It is this ambiguity that makes this poem classic, and that is why it is relevant even after so many years after its publication. So the narrative that sets up a subtle tension between the timeless attraction of the woods and the pressing obligation which draws the reader, that draws the poet back to its own obligation, which draws in fact the readers also, that okay, we have enough of the distractions, we had enough of enjoying the distractions. It is time to fulfill our responsibilities. It is time to fulfill the obligations that are pending, that are yet to be fulfilled. So this stanza, the initial thought of what is going on inside the reader's mind, it isn't quite clear, and though it is an unusual starting for the poem, but Robert Frost manages to carry it on quite interestingly. The woods that we see him trespassing, it is somewhat the image that is created in the reader's mind is as innocent a scene, as serene a scene of the winter evening. There's a steadiness in the rhythm, you will see when you read, and that keeps us going. We go on and on reading this poem. You will see in the following lines also what happens. So he is quite clear in thinking that he will not see me stopping. I'm not clear exactly. He is confident in thinking that he will not see me stopping. The owner of the woods will not see him stopping. That's interesting. So I hope you have no confusion in this stanza. And this poem, few things as since we have time, this poem was published way back in 1923. You must understand that what was the concept exactly that still till date keeps us going, and we read this poem over and over again. Once you go through the entire poem, it is simply nothing or should not be memorized. It is something that is to be understood, it is something that is to be felt, that is to be critically analyzed also. Now we will move on to the second stanza. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So yes, again the 4 lines of the second stanza, where he is telling that yes, his little horse, a very close and dear probably relation that he had with his horse, and here the attention shifts from the poet, the speaker, and also the owner of the woods to the horse. And there's a usage of poetic device, the enjambment. It is a poetic device in which one line runs into another without a loss of the sense, without a loss of even essence, not only sense but also essence. So in effect, it is a long sentence where the impact, where the syntax is unbroken by punctuation, right? And here the language is quite simple. In fact, not only in this stanza but also throughout you will find the language is quite simple. Queer is a word which means odd or strange, and the implication is that the narrator does not ordinarily stop to admire the view. He only stops at farmhouses to feed and water the horse. So it is quite unusual for the horse to stop, allow the rider to stop in the midway. So he does not realize, and the darkest evening of the year may suggest that it is the December 21st, the winter solstice, and in fact the longest night of the year. It can also mean, as you have seen referred here, it may refer to the narrator's or the poet's emotional state or perception of the undisclosed task at hand. The rider is sitting on the horse, which appears to be a dark, cold, and probably not very hospitable countryside, and it makes the horse uneasy. Not so much the poet or the narrator, but it makes the horse uneasy. And the expression of the horse, the queer attitude, the behavior of the horse is something that is quite noticeable. We have seen people behaving weirdly, but it is the horse that draws our attention. The behavior of the horse, because he thinks it weird. He wonders probably, I'm telling he because in the next stanza only the poet has referred to the horse as he. So that's why. And he wonders that why tonight? What is so special tonight? See, as I was mentioning earlier also, that the narrator calls his little horse, my little horse, which sounds that it is very dear to him, and if you take it literally, probably it might be a pony. So it can, also mean that he was quite a humble and ordinary citizen. He probably did not have the means to afford an expensive horse. That is something you also have to keep in mind. And he personifies the horse as if by indicating that he is someone who is capable of thinking. Animals do think, but putting them in words, writing exactly what is going on inside their mind, that is alluding due respect to them. That is also something interesting. It is probably the darkest evening because probably he had a bad day. The narrator might be having a bad day. That is why it is the darkest evening. It may be that he is depressed due to his long journey, or in fact the cold weather also, because it's snowing. We have already got this setting. And the 21st or the 22nd December, it plays an important part. So everywhere the darkness has impacted not only the atmosphere but also the narrator, right? He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Okay, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So yes, before I read this entire thing, you will also means I couldn't stop myself from reading the last stanza. It was so touching and it actually drew me. So in the third stanza, what happens is the horse is shaking its head, the harness bells are ringing, and as if he's asking his master that what is the problem, why there was this unusual halt, what was the need for this unusual halt. And the important thing, interesting, is the sound imageries. There are three kinds of sounds that we hear: the sounds of the harness bell, the light wind or the breeze, you can put it simply, and the snowflakes. They are so soft that even if it is absolutely pin drop silent, you may not be able to hear if you are not paying attention. So the snowflakes, that sound is soft, so everywhere it is silent, as if it is. And when we are totally reading into the poem, we see that as if the silence, the darkness, it's pressing in upon us. And again, even if we want to retract from the poem, we are drawn deeper into it. So that is what he is telling. And interestingly, you see, as I have written also, that it takes a creature like a horse, which is a symbol of intuition and sacrifice, to focus the reader's mind on the reality. Rider's mind on the reality. It is the horse which is telling that, look what you are doing, look where you are going, where have you stopped, is it correct, is it safe to stop there? Because probably the horse does not feel quite comfortable, it is unfamiliar to him, and it is through his gestures, it is a kind of a message that he is telling that it is time to move ahead. There is no logical or direct rational answer that why is the horse doing, or whether the horse is exactly doing that, but still it is, it is expressed by the horse. So in the final stanza, we see that the speaker is again returning, he is reaffirming, he is stressing on the peace and the haunting beauty of the surroundings, the snowy woods. And maybe we can only keep it till, maybe we can only assume that maybe or probably he would have stopped another night, dismounted, stayed there, or enjoyed the beauty for a longer time, but not today. This idyllic lure of the nature and its ability to distract, to give a break from the everyday din, the everyday dullness, darkness of a particular phase of life that one undergoes. These are suggestions of very strong themes. It is quite tempting, we are attracted to it, to simply withdraw into the deep silence of the woods and leave the responsibilities far behind, as the narrator has done temporarily. As we were reading the poem, we have also done that temporarily. We have left the responsibilities, obligations behind, and indulged in a bit of distraction, which would help us to return to our obligation with renewed energy, probably. Okay, and the narrator or the rider, who can also be referred to as the contemplative master of the horse, he is already committed to his duties. He is eager to return, and miles before I go to sleep, and miles before I go to sleep. So his loyalties, his duties forbid him from entering into this dream world, from stepping into further distraction, from stepping into any unfamiliar territory. It may also be interpreted as something that is going on inside his mind, where he is probably traveling or traversing the realm of the unconscious, the unfamiliar. And the horse can be, you can tell his willingness, you can tell his will that is guiding him, that whether it has stepped too deep, whether now it should return to its consciousness. It can be a dream, it can be traveling into his unconscious. You can interpret it in many ways, but I feel that it can also be interpreted, delving into the unconscious, where it is all darkness, where it is not clear, where it is unclear, it's vague. And in fact, the snow, the beauty of the unexplored part, is something that always draws us in the sense, the human beings, the human race throughout. And as much as they would have loved to melt into the snowy scene before them, they cannot do it now. For the time being, they cannot. They have to retract. And the final two stanzas, it is stress, it's a reinforcing on the reality of this situation. And Robert Frost has to return. There is no other way out. So he has isolated himself. Again, in the final two lines, the isolation from this dream world is also there, and his isolating from the everyday world to return to the dream world, to take a break, that is also evoked here. So the theme of isolation is quite dominant here. You know, lines like he will not stop me stopping, will not see me stopping here, or the line to stop without a farmhouse near. Then the other sounds, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. These are lines that tells that the narrator is, you know, enjoying the solitude of the journey, and ponders about briefly about abandoning the course in favor of this dream world. The duty and the responsibility that we come across in this poem is also an important theme. You can take it separately, you can take it together also. And despite the peace and comfort that the narrator feels, he has promises to keep. He simply cannot retract to this dream world just because he is enjoying it. It prevents him, these duties and responsibilities prevent him from continuing to indulge in this serenity of this nocturnal, calm, quiet, unfamiliar setting, unfamiliar isolation, a destination which is far away from the city. And it also brings us closer to nature. How can we forget that? He was also a romantic poet. His closeness with nature is undeniable here. So the tranquility of nature is also another thing. You can take it as the theme number 3. While the poem is alluding to the society, how do we know that he is alluding to the society? His house is in the village though. Village means what? A person living in a house does not compose of a village. A person living in a house, similar people living all around him, a society. That what composes of a village, isn't it? So his house is in the village though. That is an allusion where the poet draws back himself, and he is here close to nature, the natural world. He has placed himself between the woods and the frozen lake. And yet again this society. We cannot escape society. Probably the tranquility of nature was not strong enough. It was enough to give him a break, but was not strong enough to discard society, to leave society, to disown society. And the respite is sufficient. The respite that there is a tranquility of the woods, the serenity of the woods gave him, it was sufficient. So yes, these are some important things that is here. The interesting thing is that apart from the themes, you will find another is the repetition, which will forever remain in your mind. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. We wonder that again whether the death concept is repeated there or not, whether the poet is actually contemplating death, whether he simply wants to give up his life, end all the time or the tension, the stress that he has been undergoing, but yet he cannot, because he probably has lots of duties and responsibilities to fulfill. It can also be that probably after a hard day, he is again contemplating that still, as a poet, not as a narrator I'm telling, as a poet, he yet has to achieve great heights. Yet he has to reach the epic, the peak of the of the peak of the romantic period. Maybe that. And the tone is as interpreted, you can read it in any way. Serene, you can read it as contemplative. That is what is appealing to us. The uneasiness is something that we enjoy throughout the poem. Dear readers, listeners, I hope you have enjoyed the poem. I've tried to explain everything. If you feel that you still have confusion, please feel free to comment in the comment section. We are heading for the 1000-mark subscription. I'm sure you will help to make One Stop All Poetry Solution reach the 1000-mark subscription soon. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.